Okay, the recording has started. So today we're going to analyze a few poems. We're going to speak about the content of some romantic poems. We have selected 4 poems. The first one is entitled Love's Philosophy by Percy Shelley. Second one, When We Two Parted by Lord Byron. I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, which we have seen in class by William Wordsworth. And The Chimney Sweeper by William Blake. Some of you have already discussed the Chimney Sweeper with me last year in class, but it's important to refresh your memory about it, particularly because today we're going to focus on the principles of Romanticism. We're going to speak of the basic principles of Romanticism in each of these poems. Today's session will need your interaction. I am not going to be able to make the entire session by my own. I will need you to discuss, give your opinion, and provide answers. Okay, so it's going to be a student-centered or a learner-centered class rather than teacher-centered class. So please activate your microphones when you have something to say or when you have to answer any questions, and then deactivate them as soon as you do that, just to avoid the extra noises. So the first poem we're going to speak about is that of Percy Shelley, Love's Philosophy. Have you read the poem? You were provided the poem about 2 days ago. So did you read it? Did you try to have a look at it? Anyone?
Yeah.
Yes?
I read it.
Of it. What are your thoughts about it?
It mentioned nature and land.
Yes?
It's about to express the nature or the feelings of the writer in the nature, in inanimate object.
Yes. Now here's, it's not to an inanimate object actually. Shelley here is clearly addressing his lover. Now let's have a look at the first stanza. He says, you've mentioned nature, and it's very important that you mentioned that. If you remember the representation of nature for the Romantics, we said that nature for the Romantics is a provider of peace. Now, the Romantics think that nature is a refuge. They find their peace, they find their tranquility, and even the inner self in nature. If you remember the definition, yes?
They found the serenity and the calm in the nature.
Yes, very good. They find this calmness and peace in nature. Nature for the Romantics, and this is very important, nature for the Romantics is also equal to the inner self. Okay, usually when we're speaking of Romanticism, we're speaking of human nature and nature in general. And what is common for them between human nature and nature is the spontaneity and the peace and the innocence that is common there. Okay, that is between them. That is the human nature, that is the human self, is innately good. It is innocent, it is spontaneous, and so nature is also spontaneous and innocent and so on. Okay, and they think that the human beings are corrupted while living in society. In what way are they corrupted? We are corrupted in society because we are manipulated by society. We are affected and influenced by society. We have to conform to the norms and the rules of society. This is why we are corrupted by society. But the human self or the human nature is different. So human nature is rather innocent and bold, and this is why they identify with nature. When I say identify with nature, what I mean here is that they feel very close to nature. They feel like there is something in common between them and nature. Okay, so in Love's Philosophy, Shelley identifies with nature, and he feels like nature is part of him. Or rather that he is himself part of nature. So in the first stanza he goes saying, the fountains mingle with the river and the rivers with the ocean. The winds of heaven mix forever with a sweet emotion. Nothing in the world is single. All things by a law divine in another beings mingle. Why not I with thine? That is, why not I with mine? Okay, so what do you think of the first stanza? What do you think he means here in the first stanza?
He described a
Sorry, can you repeat?
it's- he described a landscape and put his feeling in this landscape by expressing the beauty either of this place and
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is a description of the landscape, but if what is it? What is his point in this description of the landscape? What is his message in his description of the landscape? He's saying something about it. See, he starts by saying the
trace back
fountains. Sorry?
if we, if we trace back the background of this writer, we found he trying or strive to put himself. He saw the nature as the safe haven for him, far away from industrialization. I think.
Indeed. Yes, actually, Shelley was a second generation poet. And if you remember when we spoke of the second generation poets, we said that they were very sensitive. They were looking for extreme experiences. They were constantly looking for satisfaction. And they were rather self regarding and individualist. Okay, so when you are speaking about this, always remember his belonging, the ideology of his generation, and always relate them to the poem. Okay, so if I would look at the first two lines in the stanza here, sorry, I have to add a few students. Students keep coming somehow late. All right. So if I would look back at the two first lines of the poem, he says, the fountains mingle with the river. That is, all the fountains will come to the river. Mingle, that is to mix. Okay? The fountains, which are part of nature, mingle with the river. And the rivers with the ocean. That is, all the rivers in their flow, while flowing, they will always reach the ocean. Okay? And the winds of heaven mix forever with a sweet emotion. Okay? Nothing in the world is single. So we know now that not only he's speaking of nature, but he's speaking of two things that are always together. Okay? The fountains will always find their rivers. The rivers will always find the ocean. The winds are always mixed together, saying with a sweet emotion. Okay? He is being sensitive here, or rather emotional. And then he goes on, nothing in the world is single. God has made everything in pairs, okay? Nothing in the world is single. All things by a law divine. What is meant by divine? Divine is something that comes from God, okay? Something that is made by God.
Sacred.
Sorry?
Sacred.
Sacred. No, not truly sacred, but divine is a reference to God. Okay, when we say divinity, we mean God. So when he says a law divine, that is the law of God. Okay, so all things by a law divine in another beings mingle. That is, it is God's law that everything should come in pair. Everything must have something to mingle with. The mountains with the rivers with the ocean, the winds, and so on. Nothing in the world is made single. Everything in this world is made in pairs by a law divine. It was God's decision. Okay? And then he ends up the stanza saying, why not I with mine? Why not I with you? Okay? So he is not only identifying with nature, he also thinks that it is God's decision that everything in nature should come in pair, but he finds it awkward that he is not with his lover. Why not I with thine? Okay? So is the first stanza clear? Let's move to the second stanza. He says, see the mountains kiss high heaven. That is the mountains. Again, he's still speaking about the fact that everything in nature comes in pairs, that everything in nature is naturally meeting their
Miss,
pairs.
sorry.
Yes?
Sorry for disturb you, but some students ask. I think that you should accept them in the meeting.
I already accepted them in the meeting, but apparently some students already went to another meeting. I went to the other meeting. I told them they were in the wrong meeting. I asked them to come back to this one, but apparently they have
Okay.
created another meeting. Okay, so if you can go back to
Okay.
the other meeting and ask them to come here. All right, ask them to quit the other meeting, delete the other meeting, and join this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So where was I? So he in the second stanza he says, "See the mountain kiss high heaven. The mountains kiss high heaven. That is, even the mountains are there to reach heaven. So everything in nature is truly made in pairs." Second line in the second stanza, "And the waves clasp one another." Okay, see the mountains kiss high heaven and the waves clasp one another. No sister flower could be forgiven if it disdained its brother. That is, even flowers come in pairs. Okay, no sister flower would be forgiven. No flower would be forgiven if it rejected its brother. Right, and the sunlight clasps the earth. See, when the sun rises, we have the light which covers the earth. So, and the sunlight clasps the earth, and the moonbeams kiss the sea. What are all these kissings worth, if thou kiss not me? That is, what are all these kissings worth? What is the worth of all these kissings if you don't kiss me? All right. So again, he's identifying with nature and with all the aspects of nature, all the elements of nature that are close to each other, that are together all the time. But he finds it still unfortunate and very sad and even worthless that all these things are together because he is not with the woman that he loves. Okay? So, if you were asked to find or to extract the main principles of Romanticism in this poem, knowing that that Shelley is a second generation poet, and bearing in mind all the things that you already know about the second generation poets and about Romanticism in general, sorry. So, what are the principles of Romanticism that you think you can find in this poem? The floor is yours. You can speak as much as you want. Hello. No, that's a lot of noise. Are you there?
Yes.
Yes. So the floor is yours. What are the uh, principles of Romanticism that you think you found in this poem? If you are provided this poem in an exam and you are asked to comment on the aspects of Romanticism that are in the poem, if you are asked to extract the aspects of Romanticism that are in this poem, what would you say?
Nature features.
Nature? Yes, Abdulhamid?
Mentioning some nature aspects like the mountains, maybe, or
Yes.
is it
So
the romanticism?
yes, first thing we said is that the author identifies with nature. The author feels like nature is part of him and he is part of nature. He identifies with everything that is nature natural. What else? Ahlam, did you say something?
Uh, Figures of
Yes, Habib. Okay, let's see this. The basics of romanticism that are in this poem are merely related to nature, but you cannot just say nature and stop there. The answer is incomplete here, okay? You
Like
have
in
to
this,
to say how nature is depicted in the poem and what does it mean to the author. Okay, so in the first stanza, we see that the author actually identifies with nature as part of it. He feels, he thinks that he is part of nature. The fact that everything happens automatically in nature, everything happens just so naturally by a law divine, he says. The word law divine here means that everything is meant to be like that, and that he is too meant to be with his lover. But there is a mistake here because he is not with his lover, which is a great problem for him. And then in the second stanza, he again considers nature as part of him. Okay, so he again thinks that nature is very important. It is also a part of him, and but the fact that he is not with his lover, he says, what are all these kissings worth if you don't kiss me? That is, the fact that he is not with his lover, all the other things of nature are worthless. What? He is not devaluing nature here. He is not underestimating nature. But what he is saying is that there is no happiness, there is no satisfaction in the beauty of nature and in the peace of nature as long as his lover isn't there with him. Okay, so this is the aspect of. I'm sorry. So this here is the aspect of the sensitivity or the extreme, the heightened sensitivity of the second generation romantics. If you remember when we were talking about the second generation, we said one of the things that characterized them the most was their heightened sensitivity, the fact that they had a very high and extreme sensitivity, and they were in constant search for satisfaction. So the main principles of Romanticism that are apparent in this poem are merely the importance of nature, the idea that man will identify with nature, or that man identifies with nature. Man and nature are equal because there is a human nature in the human, or rather, there is nature in the human self. And the idea of sensitivity, extreme sensitivity and emotion is the importance of love, and the fact that the author's or the poet's satisfaction is only in his ability to be with his lover, in his in the fact that he is able to be with his lover, and as long as they are not together, his satisfaction is still yet to reach, yet to come. It's not there. He's still looking for his satisfaction. Okay, so now let's move to the next poem. I'm sorry I have deactivated your microphones because there was a lot of noise. I'm going to read the second poem and start my explanation, and then I will allow you to activate your microphones as soon as you get the chance to speak. So the second poem is written by Lord Byron, entitled "When We Two Parted," that is, when we two separated. He says, when we two parted in silence and tears, half broken-hearted to sever for years, pale grew thy cheek and cold, thy that is your, okay? Pale grew thy cheek and cold, and cold, colder thy kiss. Truly that hour foretold sorrow to this. The dew of the morning sank chill on my brow. It felt like the warning of what I feel now. Thy vows are all broken, and light is thy fame. I hear thy name spoken and share in its shame. Remember, thy here means your, okay? They name thee before me, thee, that is you. They name thee before me, that is, they say your name. This here means they say your name next to me. And now to mine ear, a shrewder comes over me. Why were you so dear? They knew not I know thee, they knew not I know you, that is, they didn't know that I know you. Who knew thee so well, that is, they didn't know that I know you, while I knew you so well, I have known you so well. Long, long I shall rue thee, too deeply to tell. That is, I shall be very sad about you. In secret we met, in silence I grieve, that thy heart could forget, thy spirit deceive. That is, the fact that your heart could forget what we had, forget what happened between us. Thy heart deceive, your heart, thy spirit deceive. That is, your spirit is deceiving. If I should meet thee, if I should meet you, after long years, how should I greet thee? With silence and tears. That is, if I am going to meet you again in a few years, how should I meet you, or how should I greet you? With silence and tears. I want you to think about the meaning of silence in the poem. Why does he refer to silence over and over at each time? Now I'm going to activate your microphones. You are now allowed to activate your microphones. You can activate and participate. So what do you think of the poem, particularly of the meaning of the silence in the poem?
Maybe it refers to the emptiness that he is living. Or
Now, this is again a poem that is addressed to his lover. This is again a poem that the poet is addressing to his lover. And this is a second generation poet too, all right? So remember that the second generation poets were very sensitive, especially Lord Byron. Lord Byron was one of the most sensitive poets. And they were in constant search for extreme and exotic experiences. They wanted to be different. They had a very heightened sensitivity. So let's go back. Yes, Ahmed?
Yeah, it may mean regret.
Regret.
Yeah.
Yes. So he is regretting his lover.
Yeah.
What else? Come on, you can say whatever you want. You're free to say what you want. You know, in literature, there is no fixed interpretation. You can say what you feel or what you think about a literary text.
Maybe he doesn't have someone to talk about the problem with, and is in silence, and he cannot bring up his lover in front of anyone.
Very good. Yes, he cannot speak about her because he says, in secret we met. Okay. So they were meeting in secret. They have never been together in front of people. Even when he says, they named thee before me, they speak about you in front of me. But they don't know that he has known her for so much. Okay. Yes, Abdul Hamid?
maybe
Because he was sad. Maybe.
he couldn't find the words to express what he feels. Is that a part of it?
He couldn't find the words to express himself. Maybe, let's say he couldn't find his words because of deceit, because he is merely deceived of her. He speaks of deceit. He speaks of betrayal. He feels like he was betrayed by this woman. Rafiqa, you were saying something?
Maybe he silence refers to he was sad. No.
Yes. Okay. Let's have a look
Because
at the.
he separated with his lover.
Yes. Let's have a look at the poem again. He says, when we two parted, when we two separated, in silence and tears. they had to keep silence, and he had tears. Okay, so here first you can see the first romantic principle, which is the heightened sensitivity. Okay, this is the first romantic principle, which is the heightened sensitivity. Lord Byron was a very sensitive poet, and he loved writing about sensitivity. He says, half broken-hearted to severe fears. That is, they had to part, and they had to separate for broken-hearted and to be far from each other for years. Okay, that is, they had to be away from each other for years. Pale grew thy cheek and cold. That is, your cheeks became pale and cold. Okay, her cheeks became pale and cold. That is, she has no feelings for him anymore. Okay, we know here that the poet feels more emotion towards this woman than she has for him. He says, colder thy kiss, truly that hour foretold sorrow to this. That is, when your cheeks became pale and cold, and your kiss became cold, that hour foretold, that hour told him, or that hour informed him that he was going to live a lot of sorrow. Okay? He says, truly, that hour foretold, that hour informed me beforehand. That is to foretell someone, that is to tell something before it happens. Sorrow to this. That is, it was that moment which told him that he was going to feel a lot of sorrow, a lot of sadness. Stanza number 2. The dew of the morning chunk chill on my... sorry, why do I keep saying chunk? Sorry. The dew of the morning sank chill on my brow. That is, now the morning has come. It felt like the warning of what I feel now. Your vows are all broken. That is, she did not keep her promises. Okay? Your vows are all broken, and light is your fame. I hear your name spoken and share in its shame. That is, I hear someone speaking your name and feel its shame. He feels like her name is shameful. Why is her name shameful now? She has broken her promises. She became cold towards him. She hurt him. Next stanza.
So she has a cold heart.
Sorry?
She has a cold heart, basically.
Yes, she has a cold heart. She hurt him. Okay?
Yeah.
So next stanza. They name you before me. That is, they name your name. They call your name before me. Before me here, this is a formal way of saying next to me. Okay? Before me. This is here a formal way of saying next to me. Okay? That is someone in the same room as him. So they call your name, or they name you before me. That is, they call your name next to me. And now to mine ear. That is, it sounds so heavy to his ear. It's not something he's going to hear just like that. That is, he's affected by the fact that someone is talking about her. They are reminding him about her. A shudder comes over me. Why wert you so dear? Why were thou so dear? This here means why were you? Okay, this is very ancient English, which means why were you? Yes, okay. So why were you so dear? A shudder comes over me. That is the fact that he hears someone speaking about her. He is very affected. He becomes very emotional. He becomes really sad because she was very near to him. Okay, even though they are not together anymore, he still feels hurt, and he still feels even frustrated to the fact of hearing her name. Okay, they know not I knew thee, which means that they were actually meeting in secret. Okay, they don't know that he knows her. People will speak of her, but nobody knows that he knows her. Who knew thee so well? That is, he has known her so well. We know that they met in secret. People don't know that he has known her. but in fact, he has known her really well. He has known her a lot, okay? More than the other people. Long, long shall I rue thee, too deeply to tell. That is, he is going to be said about her for a very long time, and he is going to be deeply said about her. Final stanza. In secret we met, in silence I grieve. Okay, nobody knows that they have been meeting. Nobody knows that they know each other. So in secret we met. They have been meeting in secret, and thus in silence he has to grieve her. He cannot speak about her. He cannot speak about being hurt about her, or of being in pains about her, because nobody knew that he knows her. Okay, maybe she is married, maybe she had to marry someone else. This is why he cannot speak about her or about having known her, and thus he has to keep his sadness and all his feelings in silence. So silence is all about his feelings. The entire poem, his sensitivity, his feelings about her, his pains, everything, the sorrow, everything must be experienced in silence. Okay? Why silence? He does not have the right to speak about her. Nobody around them knows that he knows her. Okay? That your heart could forget, your spirit deceive. Like the fact that your heart has forgotten what we had, the fact that your heart has forgotten all the love that we had, your spirit is deceiving. Okay, that is, your spirit is deceiving. You are deceiving. If I should meet you after long years, how should I greet you? With silence and tears. That is, if he is ever going to meet her again in the future, he will be greeting her with silence and tears. Why silence? Because nobody ever knew that he knows her, so he should be pretending that he doesn't know her, and in tears. Why tears? Because he is half broken, heartbroken, sorry. Okay? He is heartbroken, he is living in pains, in sorrow, and he cannot show his love to her. All right? So do you have any questions or problems with this poem? Do you have any comments or questions about the poem? What are the basic principles of Romanticism that you think you have found in the poem? Hello?
Yes.
Yes?
There is a lot of emotions of sorrow and
Yes?
grief.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that the author mentioned some components of the nature, like the dew of the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did he mean?
Sorry. Well, the dew of, when he says he's speaking of the dew of the morning, the dew of the morning sank chill on my brow. That is the fact that the cold, this coldness of the morning, the fact that the morning, the early morning is somehow cold, is the cold of the morning. He says, sank chill on my brow. It made him feel so chill, so cold. Okay, he says it felt like the warning of what I feel now. This is actually a comparison or as a metaphorical language. Okay, it's a metaphor that even the coldness of the morning was a form of a warning for him that he was going to live something difficult and something very painful. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, someone else. Okay, so the basics of, or the basic principles of this poem merely related to the extreme sensitivity. All right, there are some references to nature, of course, because the Romantic poets are constantly inspiring from nature. Nature is a major source of inspiration for the Romantics, but it's not all. The sensitivity is the most important aspect here. If you remember when we were speaking of Lord Byron, we said he was the master of sensitivity. He was the man who has spoken of sensitivity the most. Okay, he is a man who wanted to experience with sensitivity, who wanted to discover all the forms of sensitivity. Okay, so we can think of him as a very sensitive man, a very emotional man, uh, who uh, who who valorized every feeling, who valorized every source of emotion in his life. And this is why the fact that he had to separate or to go away from this woman was so painful to him. Do you have anything to add about this poem? About Lord Byron's poem? Anyone? Hello?
Miss.
Yes?
So here, this poem, the author addressed his lover, or
Yes, he's addressing his lover, or rather a woman who has hurt him and who has gone away from him, and he can only grieve her in silence. He cannot speak about her. So his everything he feels about her must be hidden from the others, which is also probably part of the fact that the romantics were keeping their satisfaction always unreachable. So he had so many feelings about her, but he could not speak of them. He could not speak of any of his feelings. Everything had to happen in silence. Everything had to be kept or contemplated in silence. Okay.
yeah,
Now let's have a look at the third poem. I'm not going to speak of William Wordsworth's poem now. I think you have all discussed the poem in class, not only my students, but also the students of the other teachers. So going directly to the Chimney Sweeper by William Blake. Do you remember William Blake? What did we say about William Blake? Hello? Am I alone here?
So he saw the creation in the childhood. He said that the children inspire the ideas or the creation or innovation by the children.
Very good. Yes. William Blake thought that there is creativity and not creation, okay? That there is creativity in childhood innocence, and that if children are deprived of their creativity, they are not an inspired adult, that they are a corrupted adult. That is the difference between making an inspired person, an inspired adult, or an adult that is entirely corrupted. When we say corrupted, we don't mean someone who is politically corrupted, but someone who does not know the spontaneity of life, someone who does not experience the spontaneity of life, someone who lives only in contempt, and someone who has to follow the norms of society blindly. Okay, so he thought that if children had, or the children who had to go to work, were deprived of their spontaneity, they were deprived of their childhood innocence, and thus they were turned into adults who have no creativity and no inspiration at all. Okay, so he thought basically that child labor was a crime, that a child who was deprived of their spontaneity and their innocence as a child were ill-treated. Okay, so let's have a look at this poem. He says, when my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me, while yet my tongue could scarcely cry. Weep, 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 so your chimneys are sweep, and in sooth I sleep. There's little Tom Dacre who cried when his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved. So I said, "Hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair." And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was asleep, and he had such a sight. The thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down the green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in the river and shine in the sun. They're naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise up in clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he would have God for his father and never want joy. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark, and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not feel harm. Okay, as a first sight, what do you think of this poem in general? What is meant by chimney sweeper? What does the chimney sweeper do? What is meant by the title?
The children who clean the sweep.
The children who
We
cleaned
clean the
chimneys.
chimney.
Yes, very good. There are the children who had to clean chimneys. Okay, so this is a poem about child labor. So in the first stanza, he says, "When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry." What do these lines mean? My father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry. Hello.
Maybe he was
Could you
sent to
repeat?
work.
Could you repeat, miss? I didn't understand or catch any word.
1 second, please. There was someone speaking.
I said maybe his father sent him to work at a very young age. He couldn't
Yes.
even speak.
Yes, very good. Actually, my question was for the person who asked me to repeat. My question was, what do the three first lines mean? Okay, and yes, Rahma, you are right. Okay, so he's simply saying that his father not only sent him to work, but his father entirely sold him. Okay, so there are many things that are addressed in these three lines. First one is the consequences of the industrialization or the industrial revolution. If you remember when we discussed this in class, we said that one of the most important and drastic consequences of the industrialization is the fact that everyone became poor. A lot of people became poor. They lost their jobs in factories because they were replaced by the machine. So people became poor. They were sending their children to work. Okay, and a lot of people even sold their children. They couldn't feed their children anymore, so they were selling their children. Okay, there was also the propagation of crime. So there were a lot of thieves in London, a lot of criminals. Okay, all these are consequences of the industrialization. Thus, the Industrial Revolution was not only a good thing, it was a good thing on the British economy, but at the social level, it was drastic. It hurt a lot of people. So this is one of the main consequences of the industrialization. And if you remember, Romanticism came as a reaction to industrialization. William Blake is actually one of the first, is one of the poets of the first generation and not the second generation. Remember when we were speaking of the first and second generations, we said second generation are more sensitive, they were more individualistic and more emotional, and this is what we have seen in the poems of Shelley and Lord Byron, both of them being from the second generation. But the first generation were more concerned with society, social problems, politics, the revolution. and child labor, industrialization, and so on. Okay, and this is what we see here. This is Romanticism itself came as a reaction to the repression of the industrialization. All right. So he says, when my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me. That is, the fact that his father sold him was itself a proof, or this is an idea, the idea that people in London were having a very difficult life because of industrialization. Okay. Now, when he says, my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, that is, he was very young. He was not even able to speak when he was sold by his father. He was a toddler. Okay, so Ahmed, you made a point here. That is, his father sold him when he was very young. Okay, weep, weep, weep. That is, he was crying. To weep is well, weeping is crying. Okay. Weep, 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 weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. I clean your chimneys, and I sleep in soot. Soot is um, the gray dust that is cleaned inside the chimneys. Okay, that is, he doesn't even have a place to go to sleep. He sleeps in dirt. He sleeps in the dust that he is cleaning. Okay, is it fine for the first stanza?
Yeah, it's
All right. Next stanza. There's little Tom Dacre, who cried when his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved. So I said, hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair. Okay? So the speaker here, the speaker is himself a child. Okay, please do not confuse the speaker and the poet. So if you are asked about the speaker here, it's an unknown child. The speaker did not introduce himself, and the speaker is not William Blake. Okay, William Blake is the poet who wrote the poem, but the speaker inside the poem, that is the tone, is not that of William Blake. The tone is the voice of a child. Okay, so it's an unknown child or unnamed child. Now, this child who was sold in the first stanza is now speaking about another child who was cleaning the chimneys with him, whose name is Tom Dacre. So he's now speaking of this second child, Tom Dacre. He says, there's little Tom Dacre who cried when his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved. Okay, so his head that curled like a lamb's back, what do we call this? What is this here? Hello?
simile.
Yes, very good. This is a simile in which the hair is compared to a lamb's back. And what is the point of comparison? What does the author mean here?
To close and clarify the meaning.
Sorry?
To close and clarify the meaning.
Yes, but what does this sentence mean? The fact that
Tom's
yes?
that Tom's hair was curly.
Yes, it was curly like the lamb's back, you know, the sheep. See the hair of the sheep? Hello?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
wool
yeah.
of the sheep, it's curly and it's white. Okay, so he's comparing his hair to the lamb's back. So he says he cried when his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved. So someone has shaved all his hair. So I said, hush, Tom, never mind it. That is, don't be sad about it. For when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair. Can you explain these two lines? Or the final line, the last line? When your head's bare, that is, when you have no hair in your head, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair. Remember?
He, the speaker is trying to console Tom Zachary.
Yes, he's trying to soothe him. Okay.
And he says that if his hair is shaved, the suit will not be able to mess his hair and it won't be dirty.
Yes, very good. Okay. So if his head, or rather, if
Or to express sympathy.
sorry.
It express sympathy to his mate. He's
Yes,
implemented.
he's trying to soothe. Very good. He's trying to soothe him, and he's telling him that when you don't have any hair, your hair is not going to be spoiled by the dust. But why is he
Good for
saying
him.
your white hair? Yes, sorry?
He's trying to say he's good for you.
Yes. Yes.
Don't be at.
What do you think is meant by his white hair? Why does he say your white hair?
He was blonde.
Yes, very good.
Blondie.
He was blonde. Okay. This simply means that Tom had a very blonde hair. Tom had blonde hair, and it was easily spoiled by the suit. Okay, now let's have a look at the third stanza. So he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was sleeping, he had such a sight. That is, Tom started dreaming. Okay. That thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, that is their friends, these are the names of their friends, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. Do you know what is meant by locked up in coffins of black? That is, in black coffins. They were all locked in black coffins. Now, what is meant by a coffin?
Yes, coffins, the boxes, which dead people.
Yes.
The box, that box.
Yes. Okay.
Coffin dance.
Yes. The coffins here is a reference to the coffins where the dead people are usually put before, after their death, okay, before they are buried. All right.
Coffin
So
dance.
yes, so it's a very negative reference. All right. Now back to the poem. So he says that he had such a sight that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. They were all locked in blackness. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free.
Yes.
Then down. Sorry?
Excuse, excuse me to interrupt you. When he said, uh, looked up in coffin of a black, he meant by the sweep or chimney.
Yes, that's an indirect reference to the chimney, but it also means that the chimneys for them were like coffins. Okay, that is, when they are locked inside these coffins, the coffins are references to the chimneys, but it also means that the chimneys were a way, or an indirect way, of killing the children. The fact that these children had to be inside the chimneys and clean them, they were in fact buried inside the chimneys. Okay, remember here the idea that child labor is killing creativity. Remember that? We used to say that child labor is killing creativity. It kills the children's creativity. And so this is what happens here. Okay, this is what happens in the poem. The fact that they had to work inside the chimneys, it was killing them. It was killing their creativity. It was killing their spontaneity and their innocence. Okay, is it clear? Hello.
Yes,
Fine.
thank
Yes.
you.
All right, thank you. Now, next stanza. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run and wash in a river and shine in the sun. So they were liberated by an angel, and see that everything that is related to the angel is beautiful. Okay? The angel first is a reference to childhood innocence. Okay? And he opened the coffins and set them all free. So the angel also represents liberation. It freed them. Okay, then down a green plain, leaping, laughing they run, and wash in a river and shine in the sun. Where did they find happiness? Are
In
they happy
nature.
now? In nature. Very good. Okay, so they only find happiness, they only find freedom where? In nature. So the coffin is related to the chimney is related to the industrialization. So industrialization here is related to coffin, to blackness, to death, um, to everything that is bad and pessimist and negative. Okay, while nature represents happiness and freedom and beauty. Okay, so nature is the total opposite of industrialization. The two of them are compared, and they are let's say they are opposing each other in the poem. Okay. Next stanza. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise up in clouds and sport in the wind. That is, they are now on the clouds and sporting, that is, running in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he would be a good boy, he would have God for his father and never want joy. Can you explain these two lines? The angel told Tom if he would be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. Hello, you can share your thoughts about it.
The
It means that he
angel
will get
told
whatever.
Okay, one by one, please. Let's hear the first one. Hamid, you were saying?
Never want joy. Maybe because if he be a good boy, he will not need anything after that. He will have whatever he wants. Is that what he means?
Yes, almost. Yes, someone else? There was,
the
yes,
prom-
Rahma?
sorry. The angel promises Tom that if he is a good boy and he works hard, he will be rewarded by God and he won't be sad again.
Very good. Yes. Okay. Both of you have found the exact meaning. It simply means that if he will be a good boy, God will be taking care of him, and he will never want joy because he will be always happy. He will never have to ask for happiness. Why? He will be always happy. Okay. Last stanza. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm, so if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. Okay? So the dream, the fact that he had this beautiful dream in which he was saved by the angel spoke to him and told him that God will be taking care of him if he is a good boy, made him feel warm. Even though it was very cold, he was feeling warm, he was happy, and he was sure that God was going to take care of him. Okay? Is it clear for the last stanza?
Yes.
All right. So the basic principles, as you can see here, are merely nature, industrialization, or rather the evils of industrialization and child labor, the importance of child labor, and the idea of creativity and inspiration, and childhood spontaneity. Okay, we can see childhood spontaneity in the which stanzas are these? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, in these two stanzas, you can see, I'm going to write them down. You can see here the spontaneity. You can see the spontaneity and creativity of children in the childhood visions. Okay, you can see the creativity. I'm sorry, here there's a mistake. You can see the creativity and the spontaneity of the child or of the children in their childhood visions. And this is a reminder to the idea that an inspired adult is someone who has had a spontaneous or creative childhood. Okay, and the representation of nature.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
The part where he say he had a sight. It means vision or dream.
A dream, yes. The sight is a dream.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, welcome. So there's also the representation of nature. What is the representation of nature here? Nature saved them. Sorry. Sorry, I have a new keyboard and I'm still struggling with this keyboard because I was accustomed to another one. Anyway, so nature here is a reference to freedom. Okay, so nature grants them freedom
And escape.
Yes, very good. Freedom, escape, happiness, tranquility, but also spontaneity. Remember, there is a human nature in nature, or rather, the human nature feels free in nature, okay? The human nature or the human self feels free in nature, feels spontaneous in nature. They don't have to play roles. They don't have to apply to or rather to conform to the social norms. Okay, it's also an opposition to industrialization. Okay, it's also an opposition to industrialization. The coffin here is a reference to the chimney. The chimney is a reference to the industrialization. Okay. So we have here both industrialization and nature opposed one to the other. While industrialization is represented in the coffin which is killing them, which is black, which is depriving them of their freedom. They were crying inside the coffin. They are sleeping inside the dust of the coffin. It's related to pains and to sadness, sorrows, and so on. See, Tom Dacre was crying before the dream. All right, he was crying before going to sleep. He felt like um, um, he was ill-treated. Okay, someone shaved his head against his will, and he was exposed to all forms of bad treatment. But once he fell asleep and he had that beautiful dream, the dream led him to the beauty and the freedom of happiness. So the dream is also related to imagination. And imagination is also one of the basic principles of Romanticism. Okay, the dream or the idea of the ability to dream is related to imagination. It's also related to creativity and inspiration. See that you can find most of the romantic principles in this poem. We have the ability to dream. So the ability, sorry. We have the ability to dream. Since we have the ability to dream, there is imagination. If there is imagination, there is also creativity, and there is inspiration. Okay, there is the idea of industrialization as a bad thing. Industrialization is directly referred to as a coffin. The coffin is also a reference to death. All right. There is also an escape, which is the escape from, sorry, the escape from the repression and from the evils of industrialization. There is happiness in nature. There is freedom and liberation in nature. Also beauty and tranquility. They are happy. They are free in nature. They have the freedom to be spontaneous, okay, and to be innocent. And there is human nature, because human nature or human beings will always identify with nature. Okay, is everything clear here? Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, do you
Yeah.
have any problems, anything to add about the poem? Hello.
It's clear,
So
miss.
nature is the bright
No, miss, it's
of
clear.
Okay, someone was saying nature is bright.
nature is the bright side from the industrialization.
Yes,
So,
and which is the basic principle of Romanticism. The Romantics found freedom in nature, while in industrialization they felt like they were repressed, and they were living in a controlled universe that they didn't, that they rejected, and they didn't truly manage to live with. Okay, so if you
Miss,
have, yes,
um, we categorize this poem in light romanticism.
um, yes. Actually, all of the poems that we have seen here can be considered as light romanticism. We haven't seen any dark or gothic romanticism in these poems. But next time, as we will be speaking about Frankenstein, Frankenstein is dark romanticism. And you remind me that this is one thing that I didn't truly speak about last time in my in the class that we had last time. Although you asked me about it, um, in Romanticism, we said that there is the first generation and second generation. First generation concerned themselves with politics, with the political and cultural freedoms, but the second generation was more related to social freedom and to sensitivity and so on. But there is also there are sorry also two main types of romanticism. There is what we call the light romanticism and the gothic romanticism. The light romanticism is a romanticism that celebrates nature, that celebrates beauty, and which speaks about society, social problems, and so on, but in a more or less um, merry way. I wouldn't say truly merry, but it's a romanticism that celebrates nature, that finds a lot of freedom, happiness, tranquility in nature, just like the poems that we have seen now. Okay? While dark romanticism is a romanticism about ghosts. It's a literature about ghosts, not truly, and not only ghosts, but about everything that is terrifying, about horror, about disgusting images, um, about everything that is scary, terrifying, disgusting, and so on. Okay, so we are going to discuss Frankenstein or Modern Prometheus as an example of dark romanticism. Okay, so all of the poems that we have seen now are rather light romanticism. We cannot consider them as dark romanticism because there is no Gothicism in any of them. But when we will discuss Frankenstein, we will be speaking about dark romanticism or about Gothicism. Okay, so for our next session, um, I will try to organize my next 3 sessions within the next 10 days, so you can have all your sessions before the exams, because the exams are very soon. They should be scheduled soon. Um, so we're going to analyze a text from the Life and Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. So we will be going back in the syllabus. We're going back to the Age of Reason. because that was the first text we have dealt with in literary analysis. The point in these sessions is to focus on literary analysis and your ability to analyze a text correctly. Okay, so we are going to start with the text from The Life and Adventures of Robinson Crusoe, the text that was given to you in class. In the second text, we are going to speak about Clarissa, or History of a Young Lady. Some of you already have the text. The others, that is, my students, don't have the text, but I'm going to provide you with the text. And then we will be speaking about Frankenstein or Modern Prometheus. In the 3 sessions, you will have a text for analysis, and we are going to apply all the elements of the analysis, or all the steps of the analysis which we have seen in class, in these texts. This way, before the exam, you will be able to analyze any text, and you will be able to do it very quickly, okay, and accurately. Now, I'm going to show you the file section in this conversation, because apparently many of you don't know how to find the file section. Okay, so let me switch back to... Do you see my screen? Do you see the white screen?
Yes, it's crystal clear.
Okay, I don't see what you see. So do you see your faces, or do you see the conversation? That is, do you see your names, or do you see the conversation?
No, we see our names.
Our name.
Okay, so it's a black screen. It's not a white screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I have to share the exact screen. Sorry. Okay, back to the call. Okay, now do you see a white screen, or is it black?
A white screen.
Very good.
White
Oh, so do you see the files section here, fichier?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. If you go there, it's better to do this using a computer. I'm not sure if you're going to have all these features on the telephone, but it's easier for you to go to the computer. Now, in the file section, any of you can share the documents here. So if you have found any document that is related to your classes and which you think is going to be useful to the others, you can come here and share it with your friends, okay? Just go here, Nouveau. You just click the word Nouveau or new. You can go here. You can create the document, or you can go here, okay? In this button, Charger, you are going to upload the document directly from your computer. See? If you go here, Charger, Fichier, you are going to be able to download or to upload any document from your computer. Here's an example. Okay? And the document that you have uploaded is going to appear here. All right? On the other hand, if you go to class material, so the section that I have explained or that I have shown you here is a section that can be used by any student. Okay, any student, any of you can come here and add documents to this list. On the other hand, if you go here to class material, you're going to find the documents that I upload. I am the only one who is able to upload documents in class material. You cannot add documents to class material, but you can download documents from this file. Okay, so if you go to class material, you're going to find all the documents that we have used in this semester. This is the Age of Reason and Rise of Novel plus Analysis of Robinson Crusoe. This is the document of the Introduction of Literary Analysis. This is the text that was taken from Robinson Crusoe and which we are going to analyze next time. This was a presentation of Romanticism which I have used for this last time, and this is the document of selected poems which I have used today. Okay, so if you go to class material, you're going to find all the documents that I am uploading in this conversation. Okay, fine?
Yes, thank you.
So, thank you all for coming today, and see you very soon, hopefully. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.